Fun. All right. Well, my name is Brenda Jolly, and I'm with a company called Insperity. We opened in the market here in Virginia in late June. So we opened during COVID. It was a really interesting experience because we have a team of 8 here, and we worked together for about 8 weeks before we ever actually met in person. So they hired us all virtually, and we all started with Insperity virtually. So that first time we all got to dinner, it took about a half an hour because you thought this person was really tall and they're really short, and all kinds of funny things that you had to adjust to having only met people virtually. Our company was founded in 1986. Our headquarters are down in Kingwood, Texas. And personally, I really like to approach things just as a conversation. So if you have questions along the way, by all means, feel free to unmute yourself and say, hey, let's talk about that further or dig in. My title here at Insperity is called Business Performance Advisor. I like to think of myself as a fixer. I think every organization has pain points around their people as they're going through growth. My hope is to be able to have a conversation with business owners and say, okay, what's working, what's not working. Maybe Insperity is a great solution. Maybe we're not, but the fact that our whole team is out in the community each and every day, building relationships and resources. We might not be the solution, but our job is to serve the businesses here, whether people do business with us or not. And so we want to be able to connect you to the right relationships in the community to help you grow from a people perspective. Thank you guys for coming. I know HR is the sexiest topic on the planet, so I will try not to be too boring, and hopefully be able to shed just some good strategic light as you grow your organizations from an HR perspective. So I want to frame the conversation around thinking about HR from the standpoint of, is your business surviving or thriving? And it's been a very interesting year for everyone. So I know that could be really different depending on the situation and the industry that you're in. But my favorite quote of the year that I have read so far this year comes from the 2021 Deloitte Global Human Capital Study. And they studied several thousand different businesses around the globe. And what they found is that companies that keep the humanity and people at the core of their decisions are the ones that are thriving in our current season with COVID and politics. And we'll talk more about all of that. But the quote says, making the shift from survive to thrive depends on an organization becoming distinctly human at its core, a different way of being that approaches every question, every issue, and every decision from a human angle first. And I know as a business owner, there's any number of levers you can pull in your company to move the ball forward. You know, we can pull the finance lever, we can pull the sales and marketing lever, operations, technology. Those are some of the big levers that we can pull to change the trajectory of our company. But at the core of each of these levers is people. And here at Insperity, people are very central to who we are and what we do. And I think with the year that we all just experienced, you know, we've all gone through COVID together and we're still flushing that out. You know, the political climate has been very interesting. Business owners have had to have an answer in that arena of how we're going to handle politics in our country. Diversity, equality, and inclusion. This is a whole conversation that has come to the forefront in 2020 and now 2021. And we see big business and small business making huge strides in this arena. So as we set out to talk about HR solutions and the different levels of HR, I really wanted to frame the conversation around, here at Insperity, we have a belief that people are at the core of every major lever you can pull to move your company forward. And the organizations that are thriving in today's climate are making changes towards HR solutions that are more dynamic. They allow them to support their people with the human strength that they bring to the table, you know, that they can come to the office on their best days and worst days and know that they have a great working environment to be able to bring their whole selves to work. And overall, that enables the broader organization to be able to flourish when you have those dynamic solutions. And we'll get more into what those look like, and people feel very engaged and very comfortable, and they understand the mission of the company and where the company is trying to go. And when they get in the seat, they're committed to the mission of that organization. And that's when we start to really look at employee engagement and saying, okay, are our HR solutions dynamic enough that my people will give me that extra engagement and that extra effort because they know that I care about them? And at its core, the center of HR, at least what we believe, is that HR is how we take care of our people. We believe this so strongly that our CEO, Paul Sarvadi, wrote a book called Take Care of Your People. I think some of you have gotten this book from me, but if you haven't, I'd love to send you a copy this afternoon. It's a really, really good book, high level HR perspective, and 10 different strategies to help you grow your business from an HR perspective. So if you want to private message me in the chat your address, I'd be happy to send a copy of the book to you this afternoon. It's a good read. So an effective HR strategy is going to address 3 different layers of HR. And the most important thing, every company has all 3 of these layers at work within your organization. Whether you've done it by design or default, they're all happening. And so what we want to encourage and speak to is the ability to use strategic and systematic thinking towards these levels of HR, combining that with some HR technology and expertise. And that expertise could look like a company with Insperity that we're doing some outsourced HR with. That expertise could look like hiring an HR generalist. That expertise could look like bringing in an HR consultant. There's any number of solutions to go out and get the expertise. The technology piece is going to help streamline things and make the HR functions across the company much more simple from an administrative standpoint, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So the 3 different levels of HR that we're going to talk about is the administrative level, the process level, and the strategic level. And as we talk about each of these levels, you as the business owner or the HR director, you know your business better than anyone. And so I want you to think about, is your company approaching each of these with the overarching goal of demonstrating to your people that we care about you? And I think when we're in a climate where people know they're valued, especially like our highly skilled workers, they know they can go out and get jobs right now. People are out looking and hiring. And we want to make sure that when they are in our organizations and in our companies, they have that sense that the company I work for cares about me and they have my best interest in mind. On the flip side, as the business owner, you want to know that those employees have realized that you care about them, and in turn say, okay, I now want to engage with this company in the best way that I can as a professional to help them towards their strategic goals. Okay, so the first layer is administrative, the administrative level of HR. This is, just that basic HR level. How many of you guys offer healthcare benefits today? You just raise your hands or say, hey, either one. Okay, so we have healthcare benefits. You guys know what goes into the administration of that, especially as you grow and you get over 50 and you have to do ACA compliance and all the reporting and things like that. There's a lot that goes into that. You have your payroll, your tax filings, your reports. It also includes the confidentiality standpoint of needing to keep all your employee information confidential and having a proper filing system for that, as well as ever-changing regulatory compliance. And as an employer, it's like nobody calls you and says, hey, oh, by the way, these employment laws are changing. Nonetheless, you're still responsible for keeping up with those changes and making sure that they're happening. So that's sort of everything that's encapsulated in that administrative HR. The complexity in this layer, complexity is the enemy in this layer. It's just the more complex your systems are to be able to keep these regular tasks or to be able to keep up with employment related law, the more difficult this gets to be for your organization and frustrating for your employees. Like if your employees can't look up a pay stub or know how much time off they've accrued, or they're not sure who to call if they have an issue with their health care or they had a baby and they need to add them to the plan. Just different administrative things that happen in the day-to-day life of a business. And then complexity coupled here with the repetitive nature of things like payroll and government reporting. Every couple weeks it comes around, every quarter we got to file the taxes and do all the federal, state, and local tax filings. So in the administrative level, keeping things simple and having systems and processes in place for that simplicity is really, really important. Any questions about the administrative layer? It's all pretty, I mean, that side of it is pretty, it's simple as long as you keep it simple and you don't make it too complex and you find the right solutions for yourself. Okay. Second layer I want to talk about is the process level. This level is very event driven. So I put that question on the screen, what fire are we putting out today? I don't think there's a single business owner that wakes up and doesn't have a fire to put out at some point during the day. Sometimes they're small fires, sometimes they're big fires. But in this level of HR, it's very event driven. So it's things like hiring, firing, mid-year changes, enrolling in benefits. Let's say I want to change one of my employees and he, goes from a day-to-day worker to a manager. And so he was non-exempt and now he's exempt and I want to change him from hourly to salary. And what's the process inside my organization for being able to do that? It's not something that we're doing on a daily basis. Let's say we want to rearrange job functions and we want to put, another layer of leadership into the organization. And now we have to write job descriptions and we have to figure out promotion plans and career paths. Again, these are things that maybe we're not doing day to day, but when they come along, we need to be able to do them. Each one of these areas carries a certain amount of risk to it. And I think that's the tricky thing about HR is, whether we're a business owner or Laura, you talked about you're an HR department of one, is we just don't know what we don't know. And so we can be very well meaning and thinking, okay, I'm going to, I can use an example here. So I worked with a real estate appraisal company and really well meaning in the way that they're paying their people. Everybody's really well compensated. But they didn't have a system in place if they got audited to show that they were paying fair labor standards for piecework in terms of commission compensation. And so we were able to unwrap that for them and say, hey, you guys are wanting to do the right thing. Your process just isn't doing it correctly. So if we make a few tweaks in terms of an audit, you guys would be on the safe side and able to help them out with that. So in this process-driven layer, it's really important that as a business owner and HR director, that we're properly identifying and following the right laws and regulations when we do have, a hiring or a firing event, or, we want to change the way people are paid inside of our organization. This is a pain point for many, many small businesses. It's problematic because it's such a wide array of events that kick off this process layer of HR. They happen randomly. And so that consistency and process management is seldom a strong point for small business. So if you're on the call and you're thinking, yeah, some of those examples, I don't exactly know what our process is or how we would handle that, you're in good company. I think that that complexity, the fact that it's random, makes it difficult for a lot of small businesses. So part of Insperity's role in how we work with businesses and how we encourage businesses is helping thrive through challenge. Obviously, it's been a very challenging year for many, many business owners. Now, on the flip side, I'm shocked at the number of business owners that I've worked with that are ahead over, in 2020, they were over 2019. They've grown, they've hired. So not every business has declined during COVID by any means, but the best example or the story that I love here when we're talking about thriving through challenging. So Insperity has won Employer of the Year across the country, maybe over 150 times. I think once you come to work for Insperity, you never want to leave because they're so good to you. But how we've helped our clients during COVID. So I thought that this was really interesting. We have 81 offices across the country. Virginia is our newest office. We're the only office in Virginia proper, but we do have a couple offices in DC. And we also have lobbyists who work to transform HR law for how we do business. And when the CARES Act dropped, it took 17 minutes for the new laws to get from Washington to our CEO. And Insperity had a task force set up that day. Obviously, we have over 100,000 small business clients throughout the country, and some of those clients had very, very, difficult roads to walk as they approached COVID. And so we were able to stand beside them. Within a week, they were able to download all the reporting that they needed for their PPP loan funds. 66% of our clients received their funds within the first week. And then our teams went to work to create a COVID resource center. So all of our clients weekly could get updates about COVID updates and how they should handle the regulations and the laws and how they should communicate and respond to their employees. And what happened is we just got our 2020 satisfaction rates back. We had a 91% client satisfaction rate in 2019, and we were able to drive that up to 95%. Because of the way that we were able to work with our businesses throughout COVID and just the challenges that they faced. So, that process management of being able to respond quickly in a crisis and being able to respond to events that you don't see coming, it also really speaks to employee engagement of like, how satisfied are your employees working at your company? Do they feel like they've had the communication that they've needed during COVID? Are we talking to them weekly? Do they know that the company is in a good position? And so we want to help businesses thrive through challenge. And that could look like being an Insperity client. It could just look like calling Brenda up and saying, hey, Brenda, I'm having some of these challenges. I wanted to bounce some things off you and see if there's some resources there that you could help us out with. So this third layer of HR is the strategic layer. And I think that this is the fun layer. When we can get the administrative stuff down, we can get processes in place for those events that we don't see coming. Then we get to drive 1969 Stingray. This is my dream car. I really want somebody to buy me this car when I turn 50. So if any of us become really good friends when I'm 50, this is what I want for my birthday, okay? But seriously, the strategic layer of HR allows us to drive outcomes in our company. We talked in the beginning about those major levels that a company can pull. You can pull a finance level. You can pull a sales and marketing level. Like, okay, I need to get more out of my sales and marketing team because that is the forefront of how I drive revenue into my business. Well, you're only going to get more out of sales and marketing if the people who are doing your sales and marketing are better trained and better understand how to get traction. So the strategic layer of HR is where the highest level of HR practices and behavioral science meet to help a business achieve strategic objectives. Okay, and that's where we start to think of HR as a revenue center and less of a cost center. When we're just operating administratively and from the process layer of HR is a burden. It's a cost on your bottom line. It's when we get into strategic HR and really being able to implement strategic objectives that are dynamic within your workforce that allow you to convert what was a cost center into a revenue center. So some examples here of things that strategic HR can accomplish inside a company. How many of you have ever had turnover issues in your company? Nobody, right? Nobody ever has turnover issues. Everybody likes to stay and work at our companies forever. Turnover costs money. I don't have to talk to you guys about how much turnover costs. You already know, you feel it in your own wallets. So lowering turnover is a great strategic objective that can take HR from a cost center to a revenue center. Increasing sales or service results, either one. If you are a sales geared organization, then you need a sales workforce who understands how to prospect, how to add value, how to get in front of the right person, that they're properly compensated for their efforts so that they can stay motivated as they're out there selling. Or if you're a service-based industry, how do I perfect that customer service experience how do I make myself sticky with my customers so it's not a one-time service and then they don't come back and see me again? These are strategic HR objectives that can drive the revenue line inside your organization. Another one, and this is one that I find many of the small businesses that I've had the opportunity to work with, this is one where they get stuck and having a team of HR professionals to really help them out would be a game changer in their business. And this is adding layers and levels of management inside the organization. You know, we can use sales as an example. You have a salesperson who's a great producer. So you think, okay, I want to build out a sales team, and this person's so good at it that I'll promote them, and then they can help me build out a sales team. Well, that person might not like managing people, or they might just flat out lack the skill set to know how to motivate a team of salespeople. And so adding that layer inside the organization is critical to growth. At some point, you have to put layers between the owner and the workforce and have managers or leadership, however you want to call it, inside the organization. But doing that strategically so that we don't burn out our top performers is a huge HR objective in that strategic level of HR. The other thing is creating career paths. You know, people, if they join your company and they find a home there, they also want to know, okay, well, what does the future look like for me? Can I see myself staying here long term? If I was 5 or 10 years down the road, what would my role look like? And sometimes as a business owner, I know we go back to that screen of what fire are you putting out today? And it's like, well, I'm just trying to keep moving forward. But we do need to take that time to think about, okay, these key employees that have found a home and we want them working with us over the long haul, is how do we create a career path for them? What are their educational goals? What are their personal goals? Are there ways that we can help them achieve these things inside the organization? At the end of the day, that employee is going to be incredibly engaged and be putting money, you know, back in top line of revenue rather than costing you more as a cost center. I'm curious from you guys, from a strategic HR perspective, if there's any certain objectives that you guys are working on right now. So I'd love it if you unmuted yourself just to get some feedback from the group.
We've got one that's kind of picking up of what you said at the end there. Sorry, I'm moving between a chair and standing here. I'm starting book clubs with my employees,
Okay.
and I've quickly realized that I can only have so many books going at once. So now I'm working with my install manager, and we're reading Lean, the Toyota production system. And once we do that, then I'm going to have him now start individual kind of things with his 4 employees that work under his department.
Okay.
But that is one thing that I've realized. I've seen a drastic change in our team's efforts and communication with customers and everything when my one-on-one meetings with them have nothing to do with our business, and it's strictly about personal growth and, you know, things like that. And my kind of heavy hitter that he's been doing this for 15, 16 years, so we don't have a book club, but our one-on-one meeting, we strictly talk about what did she do in the past 7 days that wasn't budget blinds related. And that's the only thing we talk about each week. So I don't know if I can necessarily call it an initiative or what behind it, but you know, their personal growth and what they're doing to challenge their brains outside of work so that they're clear-headed when they come into work is our primary focus right now.
Yeah. It'd be interesting, Kevin, to be able to track some metrics around that about, you know, if their production increases or their engagement or overall satisfaction with working at budget blinds.
Yeah, I've got some metrics that it was kind of really all started for one employee that just kind of needed to ramp up her level, if you will. And we've seen a drastic change in her performance. And I even made a comment to her maybe last one-on-one meeting of it. It actually, for a while, it felt as though I was talking to someone who worked in my company and kind of knew what was going on, but every time I asked the question, she never really knew what it was, and we'd have to work our way to it. To now, the conversations are, I can tell she's taking her own time to look things up and to learn them and so forth, and now it actually feels as though I'm speaking with a colleague in my office who has ambitions, who has goals, who really cares about her job and what she's doing versus just someone getting paid and trying to grasp on to whatever it was that we were throwing at her.
Right. Well, thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have strategic objectives around HR that they're working on today?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Eric Olson. We just launched something that's kind of similar, I guess, to Book Club, which is an educational fund or budget for every employee. So, like tuition reimbursements come up a couple of times, and we've always kind of been like, well, maybe, sort of, kind of. And so we decided to put something in place that's a little more formal. It's not going to pay for someone's college, but really what people are looking for is not so much tuition reimbursement as much as like books, conferences, video series, stuff like that. And so we started with $1,000 a year per employee, which you could extinguish that pretty quickly. But to go from nothing and no policy on it to $1,000 a year per employee, like, everyone was a lot more excited than I thought they would be. and so now I wanted to do the book club kind of a concept as well, but we've got people scattered all over the place, different states at this point. And so I was thinking, like, trying to track those books, like who had what, and then they could send it to the next person. And I'm like, you know what, these books are cheap, $15 a pop from Amazon Prime. We'll just ship them out. So it removed a lot of friction as far as like when people wanted to buy stuff. And now it's like, all right, well, if you got the budget, go for it. I don't even have to be involved.
Eric, that's going to pay off in spades. You can't. I think it'll come back around, just the amount that they will learn and hone their skills and have a broader base of knowledge.
Cool.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing. Mr. Hartley, did you want to share?
Yeah, I was just going to say we started over the last probably year and a half looking at our onboarding process from once we hired somebody, and from the moment we hired them to, what does their first 30 or 60 days look like?
Yeah.
We had for a while, we just had a big disconnect from hiring, and then not so much they didn't, that there wasn't clarity in terms of where they fit, what their role was, what their job description was, so on and so forth. So, we really looked at that, and we've, started to develop a more just almost, hour by hour onboarding for their first, entire week, and then a little bit more consistent follow-up, and then getting a few more people involved in the company in that training and onboarding during that first week. I mean, a lot of it was me spending 3 days just kind of explaining, okay, here's what we do, here's how we operate, here's what we expect, now go do it. And now we're getting more of the leadership involved, where, like I said, we're breaking it down. So it's, we give them the schedule during that first day where they can see, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they know what they're going to be doing, what the subject matter is, who they're going to be working with. So like I said, it's still kind of new. We've only had the opportunity to do it with about 4 or 5 new hires, but so far it looks like it's paying some dividends.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things we talk with business owners about quite a lot is, if we can cut down the training cycle, how does that impact your revenue? Obviously from an engagement standpoint, but also if you have a team and it takes them 90 days to get up to speed, then how would it impact you annually if you could get them up to speed in 60 days? So I always find that to be an interesting conversation around strategic HR. It's like, okay, how can we get these folks up and running as quickly as possible? From an engagement perspective, but also just having them trained and doing the job we've brought them on to do. It's really interesting. Thanks for sharing. Let's see here. Okay. So here at Insperity, our mission statement, we believe that when businesses succeed, communities prosper. That is why we do what we do, is that we want to see our local communities prospering, and really believe that the small to mid-sized business is a huge part of every community succeeding around America. So we structured today's conversation just around the thought of, is your business surviving or thriving when it comes to HR? If you're in the seat where you say, right now I just feel like I'm surviving, is not a bad thing. It's just, getting a locator of where we're at and then how we can move the ball forward. Or am I thriving? I do think everything that I've read and studied, just in the first month and a half of 2021, the reporting that's coming out, whether it's from Deloitte, whether it's from, Fortune 500 companies around the globe, of just the more we can focus on the humanity of our companies, the more we're set up to thrive in our current climate. And so as we close, we really just want you guys to know that we're here in the community as a resource. Insperity might be a good fit for your business. It might not. The way we approach HR for companies is pretty unique in the support that we're able to offer. But whether we do business or not, that's not really why we joined EO. That's not really why we're doing the webinar today. We really want to build relationships in the community, and then the business happens really naturally, because there's a right fit and a right time, if it makes sense. So we want you to take away from today that we really are here to be a resource for you. And then I just want to open it up for questions if people have specific questions about anything we talked about today or outside of what we talked about Insperity, whatever's on your mind.
Hey, Brenda, Eric again. Hey, I don't know if this is a softball or a hardball question, but
You're fine.
we have we've talked about one day hiring people from overseas,
Okay.
because we can do remote work now. So why limit yourself even to the United States? But I have no clue what that means as far as legalities of hiring full-time foreign people. Can you kind of maybe give a little oversight into some of the challenges there?
Yeah, to be honest, I really am not qualified to speak to that, but I would be happy to find out for you.
Cool. All right.
I'm much more adept in American employment than overseas employment, but I think that's a good train of thought of, there's a lot of talent around the globe and a lot of room for expansion, and it's certainly been done many times before. So I'm going to find some resources for you, Eric, and send it your way.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to jump in real quickly. Something you had said at the beginning and kind of touched on at the end, Brenda, kind of struck home for me. My wife made this comment earlier as we were talking about our son and like the next generation of people coming underneath us. And I'm only 34, and so I'm going to own this business for a while and hopefully have a lot of people coming through over the next however many years. And the part that she said was that empathy and learning how to have empathy and go about that the right way is going to be one of the biggest keys to success with our kids. Because again, that's specifically what we're talking about. Now I'm thinking about all the employees, and you talking about the human element and so forth. And I made a very clear distinction a couple of times when some things didn't happen the great way with my employees of, sympathy and empathy are much different things. And, we can all have empathy for each other and we can understand where we're coming from. But if that distracts the main goal, then that's a problem. But at the same rate, that is a human involved in our company that does need to get there. So the empathy does need to weigh a certain degree. And it's nice to hear that you're kind of seeing that that's that same thing out there in the workplace.
Yeah. I mean, I want to piggyback on that the more we can communicate upfront what the standards are, the more those conversations are easier to have with your employees when you do have difficult moments or disciplinary moments, because they know if you communicated upfront and early, like, well, when I interviewed you, you told me you could do X, Y, and Z, but X, Y, and Z is not happening. So let's have a conversation about that. That upfront communication about the expectations in the job description really pay off when you do have to have a disciplinary conversation of like, okay, I am empathetic to your situation, but I also am running a business here, and we need to be able to have these conversations.
I've had to have a few of those.
Yeah, they're so fun. Any other questions? Okay, wonderful. Well, I am going to put my information back up on the screen. Actually, I'm just going to stop sharing for now. I appreciate your guys' time today.